Welcome back to Wake Up America. I'm Christina Thompson. Empty shelves are seeming to become the new normal as our supply chain issues rock the country. But now there's a shortage of children's Tylenol, Advil, Motrin. It's as COVID, the flu, and RSV surges across the country. Here to break it down is internist with MD VIP, Dr. Frank Contacessa. Welcome back, Dr. Frank. I'm wondering, is this issues with the medicine just another supply chain issue, or are more people getting sick so it's just hard to keep up with the demand?
Well, good morning, Christina. It's probably a combination of both. There are the cases are up for all the things you just mentioned, flu and COVID, RSV. But I think there's also a fear when people hear on the news that there's going to be shortages. Their instinct is to hoard these things. So I think one of my messages this morning to parents is, please don't hoard these things. If you don't have an immediate need, you don't need to buy more than one, and try to save it for other people who might really need it. Another thing to keep in mind is, especially when it comes to the Tylenol and the fever reducers, is that it's more to keep your kid comfortable. Unless your child has a really high fever, 104, 105, when you want to call your pediatrician and maybe get them to the hospital to get checked. If your child has 100, 101 fever, it's not the end of the world. Obviously, you want to make them comfortable and give them something to bring the fever down. But our old pediatrician used to say, fever is your friend, because the elevated temperature can help your body clear the infection. So don't panic if your child is ill and you don't have any Tylenol on hand.
Interesting. Also across the entire country, these temperatures that we're seeing are so low, record low numbers, some places in the negatives. As it just keeps getting colder this winter, do you think that we're going to see more and more cases of RSV, the flu, just as kids are outside in these temperatures that they might not be used to?
Well, the cold temperatures really, when they drive up numbers, it's because people stay inside, gathered together in confined places. The cold temperatures in and of itself doesn't make you sick. It's a bit of a wives' tale when they say, put a coat on, you're going to get pneumonia if you go outside. That's a bit of a wives' tale. You have to, in order to get sick, you have to come in contact with a pathogen like a virus or a bacteria. So the cold temperatures in and of themselves are not the risk as far as getting a respiratory illness. I am concerned about the exposure, for people who can't get shelter with frostbite and things like that.
So I know that you said fever is your friend, but if a parent sees that their child's temperature is just kind of getting up there, they want their kid to be more comfortable. Is there an alternative that they could look at to try to find medicine on these empty shelves, maybe a different way to find them, or some natural remedies that might be good?
Well, I don't know of any alternative way to find it. And as to your first question, I do think it's a supply chain issue, because we're not making these things in this country anymore. And we found the same problem when we needed PPE at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, where we couldn't find N95 masks. So from a broad stroke, I think it's important that we bring the manufacturing of these things in place. And as far as alternative and naturopathic things, a lot of these things aren't really cleared by the FDA, and they're a little bit risky. So I'm not sure that I would put out any alternative advice out there at this point.
Okay. COVID cases, they were surging ahead of Christmas. Now it was one of the largest heavily traveled Christmases that we've seen since the beginning of the pandemic. Do you think that with all of these families getting together, everyone traveling to see each other, are we going to maybe see another massive surge of COVID in the coming weeks after the holiday celebrations?
Sure, I think we might. We typically see that, after the holidays or after people getting together. But I don't think it's anything to panic over. Cases, by and large, are extremely mild. You take your risk, and if you get sick, you get sick. You're home for a few days. I have not seen really severe cases of COVID in quite some time. By and large, especially for, this is my message all the time for lower risk people. It's a cold, really. It's a severe cold at worst. I think people are sicker from the flu in general, as far as clinical symptoms go. So I think we might see a rise, but I don't think that's a reason to tell people that they can't or shouldn't get together with friends and family. I think that's an important thing for us to do, especially during the holidays.
Is there anything that we're seeing different coming out of China? Any new strands that we should maybe be worried about, just have an extra radar up about?
Well, I think you always have to be suspicious of whatever China reports, but they are seeing a wave of cases, some of them severe there, because I think their natural immunity, their herd immunity, is much lower than ours because of their authoritarian system of keeping everything. There was a zero tolerance policy in China, and all of a sudden they relaxed that a little bit, and their cases are off the charts. There are always going to be new strains, and no matter where they originate from, there are always going to be new strains. I try to explain it like this to people. You know, the common cold, we've been searching for years for a cure for the common cold or a vaccination. And the reason we haven't been able to find one is because the common cold evolved so quickly. But what causes most common colds? Coronaviruses. So in trying to keep this thing under control, and the new, there's always going to be new strains, but the long-term solution is herd immunity. Us all having it and having a mild case, and when you get COVID, you're sick for a few days and then you get better.
Thank you, Dr. Frank Contacessa, for coming on the show this morning. I hope you had a good Christmas holiday.
It was very nice. I hope you did too, Christina.
I did. And